In the aftermath of the Newton massacre, many of us are asking, what if anything is going to change? And will this event be a catalyst for social change? Do we sing a song in tribute, light a candle, and then go back to life as usual? The answers are very complex. No single risk factor causes a child or adolescent to act aggressively. Instead, it's the accumulation of risk factors that leads to an aggressive act. Stronger gun laws in the United States, where there are between 11 and 12,000 gun murders every year, is a start. But we need free mental health clinics. We need 800 numbers in the public sphere so that we can start to eliminate the stigma that goes along with the mental health system. And we need a place where people can report suspicious situations. We need to critically examine how our culture teaches masculinity. According to Jackson Katz, 61 of the past 62 rampage killings were committed by men, and nearly 3/4 of them white. 90% of all murder-suicides are perpetrated by men. So we really need to address the dominant ideals of manhood that equate masculinity with violence. Little, scrawny, sad Adam Lanza knew how to feel equal in a world where establishing masculine dominance requires having someone to put down. And this is a real advertisement for the very weapon that Lanza used in the Sandy Hook elementary killings. Media entertainment is a large part of the problem and deserves public acknowledgement. Media Watch has followed the science on violent media for over 20 years. And over the past 50 years, a large number of studies conducted around the world have shown that watching violent television, watching violent films, or playing violent video games increases the likelihood for aggressive behavior. Why is there a persistent tendency, even among educated people, to deny media violence effects? The mainstream media coverage literally distorts the facts. Experts who actually study media violence are rarely given voice. And instead they use some PhD, for example, who's written a book about deranged serial killers, and they're interviewed instead. If one has a vested interest in violent media, meaning they use it or create it, then their need to maintain a positive self-image motivates the denial of media violence effects. They've actually done a study on that, and it shows what cognitive dissonance is being in play. And cognitive dissonance is the discomfort that results from holding two conflicting beliefs. Attraction to violent media, sadly, is trumping reality. This is not a call for censorship. It's a call for reason and willingness to look at the science and our medical community for suggestions. Effects of media violence do not have to be immediate or severe to exist. The results of all the meta-analysis show that exposure to media violence can increase not only aggressive behavior in a variety of forms, but also aggressive thoughts, aggressive feelings, physiological arousal, and a decrease in pro-social behavior. Media violence effects usually take less dramatic and instantaneous forms, like a child being more defiant and disrespectful with increased media violence exposure, or an adult being less helpful to others. Media Watch has watched the violent video game industry, for example, grow from nothing into what some now estimate is a $100 billion global industry. It's lucrative and male-dominated, where 90% of those who work in it are male. We're going to take a look at a clip that I want to warn our viewers about. It shows a popular game that's been on the internet for 10 years called Kindergarten Killers. It has rudimentary kind of graphics, and then I'll show a clip from what Adam Lanza liked to play, which was a video game called Call to Duty. And he did so in a very set-up little basement area, and a call to action at the end of this video from a group in Connecticut.
Revenge is like a ghost.
This appears to be the work of the ultra-nationalists led by the shadow of Zakayev, one Vladimir Makarov. The Kremlin, however, sees it differently.
The Prime Minister has pledged full support to aid in any way possible.
Zakayev kept Makarov in check, but no longer.
In the wake of the Newtown tragedy, many have been openly critical of violent video games. Now a group in Southington is taking action on that front. News 8's Jeff Vallon has more on its video game buyback program.
What do we do as a community? We need to do something.
And doing something they are. A group called Southington SOS, originally formed in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, now responding to the Sandy Hook tragedy with not a gun buyback, but a violent video game buyback. In return, something that might bring the family together.
They will get a certificate for a night of bowling, a certificate for a night to go out to dinner with their family, a certificate at lake compounds.
Group members say they claim no link between violent media and Sandy Hook, but certainly aren't hiding that the tragedy was a catalyst for their motivation.
The use of violent video games does cause an increase in aggression, an increase in fear and anxiety, and desensitization about acts of violence. And those are proven facts.
They'll be collecting those materials 9 to noon, Saturday, January 12th, here at the Southington Drive-In, Meriden Waterbury Road. Rain, snow, or shine, and perhaps best of all, they're not being too picky about what passes for violent.
We didn't want to be specific on what it is. If a family deems that it's violent or is detrimental or leads to some sort of risky behavior, then that's fine.
Those who can't make it on the 12th can turn in violent video games, CDs, and DVDs at the Southington Board of Education, the United Way, or the Chamber of Commerce. In Southington, Jeff Vallon, News 8.
Sadly, this effort was stopped. They got so much flack from the communities and from people around the country that they decided to not do that, which was really sad. Joining me to discuss this issue and to take positive steps that we can as parents, caregivers, to address this kind of violence is Irene Van der Sande. She's the executive director and founder of Kidpower, Teen Power, Full Power International. She's the author of several books, including the Kidpower Book for Caring Adults, the Relationship Safety Skills Handbook for Teens, and Adults and Bullying, What Adults Need to Know and Do to Keep Kids Safe. She's become a global nonprofit leader in providing positive and effective violence prevention skill building services that have protected and empowered now over 2 million people of all ages and abilities since 1989. Irene is also known as a personal safety and child protection expert in publications, everything from Wall Street Journal and the USA Today to CNN. Please join me in welcoming Irene Van der Sande.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you so much, Irene. And can you just give me some feedback about what we just watched and some of the things that I was talking about?
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking every time we hear a story about violence against anyone, and especially kids, and about the fact that, I thought that buyback on the video games was brilliant. And to get the family doing something together instead of somebody alone watching repetitive acts of violence over and over and over again. And it's a revolutionary step in a way, because they're really asking and pushing for social change by doing that kind of an action. Yeah. And they were browbeat, I think, by various video game makers or video gamers. It's very interesting because the studies have shown, they've actually done studies and they found that it's the cognitive dissonance that they can't allow themselves to look at themselves in the mirror and go through their day without, and thinking that there's something wrong with media violence. And it's because we've been taught as a culture that violence is entertaining, that put downs are funny, And it goes in, you know, it's everything from cartoons to young children all the way through video games, all the way through movies and magazines. Right. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here.
Well, I think our audience needs to understand that there's also so many levels of platforms and of the technology that these things are available on now, that we let our children have access to internet. And in their own rooms, and they can just take it into bed with them, and they can text, and they can do whatever they want to under the sheets, or whatever they're doing. And that, sadly, the culture is ruthless. It's greedy, and it really doesn't care. One thing I think viewers don't really understand, and that a lot of people don't understand, is that television executives and people that are in the know about the effects of media violence, they don't let their own children watch and be around this, because they want to keep... They're protective. Yeah. So one article you wrote, Irene, that I thought was brilliant was just, what do you say to your kid when they ask you, somebody's shooting people at the school, what am I going to do? I mean, what would I do, Mommy? You know, what would I do, Daddy? What would a parent say to a child that asks that tragic question?
Isn't it terrible that we even have to think about questions like that, and even have to hear our children think about it? I just think we need to take a moment to be sad about that. And what we say to parents and teachers and other caring adults is that, you know, you take care of your own feelings, take a breath, and realize that adult-level grieving, adult-level reactions are not going to serve kids, especially young kids. We've had kids as young as 6 ask this question in a Kidpower class, or in a mom wrote to me after Newtown saying, what do I say to my daughter? And so the first thing is you say the truth. You have to say more than the truth. You start with, this almost never happens. And this person is not going to do it again, which is true. It doesn't mean it'll never happen again, but we focus on the positive for kids because we want them to feel safe. And the reality is that most of the time they're not going to encounter a horrific event like this. But it's not going to be enough to tell them just that. So you say, we are doing a lot of things to help your school or your neighborhood or wherever the event happened, the shopping centers, be safe. And if something scary happens, if somebody starts being unsafe and shooting, then what you do is you follow the directions of the adult in charge, if that person is giving you directions. Because teachers, the teachers at, they did a brilliant job at Sandy Hook. They did. They were, they all deserve Purple Hearts. Yeah, they were so brave.
It's amazing who gets Purple Hearts in our culture.
That's right.
These acts of bravery, and here are instances of extraordinary courage and valor.
Right in the moment, saying, we'll hide the kids, we'll get away from this person, we'll lock things up. Yeah. The fact from the principal, the head of school, who sacrificed her life but bought time, from the parent who dived under the desk and called 911, which got the attack stopped once the emergency people got there. Yeah. From all the teachers who did everything in their power, the janitor who ran down the halls telling people to lock their doors. I mean, people were so courageous. And so we want to empower adults to take charge. And so we say to kids that, because we hope there will be an adult in charge, especially if they're younger and with an adult. But we say, if you don't know what to do, the first thing is run away from the person who is not being safe. And I've even, when something has happened at a school or in a school community where it's, I won't bring it up in a class because I don't want to put images in kids' minds that don't need to be there. Yeah. But when it is there, then I will say something like, pretend, and I never act it out, but I just say, pretend I'm acting unsafely. How could you get out of this room? And I have adults waiting outside. And the kids will just get up and stream out the doors to the adults. And the adults are there prepared to say, I will help you. So we teach kids to leave if you can, hide and if you can't leave, but they're safest if they just run away. Safest if they have a plan and the adults are locking the doors and taking care of them. You do what the adults tell you to do.
That one survivor who played dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and you
kind of brilliant in a way, but it's also like, oh my God, the trauma that.
Yeah, what a frightening thing. But you hold very still. You be very quiet. You hide.
Yeah.
You run if you can run. You know, you do what the adults tell you if you can do that. You run if you can run, and you hide if you can't run away.
Yeah.
And you be very still and quiet. I saw a video for adults called "Run, Hide, Fight" that was done by the Houston Police Department, I think, and it was good. It was for adults, but it was really good because it showed how mental preparedness can help you make a plan.
Yeah.
To take action instead of freezing, which is the worst thing to do.
You've often talked about how children should be shielded from information.
Yes.
I mean, this kind of a thing has just been blasted all over the media. Actually, trying to keep it from kids is nearly impossible.
Well, what you can prevent is you can't keep all the information from kids. They're going to hear other kids talking about it, but you don't have to keep on having them live it. Kids experience television as if, or something that they see on the media, especially video or radio, as if it's really happening right now. It's still happening.
Yeah.
And when they have to hear things over and over, adults sounding upset, talking about terrible things, it doesn't make them safer. It just makes them scared. It just makes them anxious. And you know what? It doesn't make us safer either. We can turn off the radio, turn off the internet, turn off the TV, unless we're in the middle of an emergency. Like if you're in a hurricane, then you need to know right now, what do I do to be safe? Yeah. But otherwise, we can get our information later. We can also get support for our feelings away from kids, because a lot of times adults are actively grieving or are just talking about their own horror, and their kids might seem to be playing and not paying attention,
right,
and you're talking to themselves. They hear everything. They hear all the things you think they weren't going to hear.
Exactly.
And again, it was so interesting in World War II in London when they were bombing bombing London, and people would go into the air raid shelters, the bomb shelters. And the air wardens, who were the ones in charge of the shelters, when they would be acting scared and quiet and depressed, then the kids in those shelters were more traumatized than kids, were the kids who were in the shelters where they were, cheering when their guys won, when they were singing when they were keeping up the spirit and acting brave and courageous in the face of danger. Those kids came through far less damaged, in fact, most of them relatively unscathed, because kids take their cues from adults, and if adults act like, okay, there's danger, but you know what, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, a kind of an optimism.
That's it.
Yeah. I want people to understand your great work and the great work that you've brought here to Santa Cruz. Luckily, I was able to do one of the first self-defense classes with you years ago. 25 years ago.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. We took the class together.
We took a class together, and I'd like to have the audience look at the tape that we have, and also to let you know that if you can, go on to the website at kidpower.org and watch this video in its entirety, so that you can, it helps with the funding of Kidpower.
Yes,
so let's take a look.
We are here to learn about Kidpower.
It's important for kids to be safe because you never know what's going to happen.
So we know what to do when a bully comes around.
Because out in the world, there's not always going to be someone there to help.
Kidpower teaches young people and adults to use their power to stay safe, act wisely, and believe in themselves. We teach school programs, we teach parent-child workshops, we teach workshops for people with special needs. The reason I do this work is because in 1985, when my daughter was 7 and my son was 4, I took a group of young children, including them, into downtown Santa Cruz. And in a public place with people standing all around, a man threatened to kidnap my kids. And at that moment, all of them were my kids. To this day, I still can remember this man charging towards us with his arms stretched out with this group of young children, shouting, "I'm going to take one of these girls." I kept thinking, what if he'd knocked me down? What if he'd even tried to touch one of those kids? And I knew I'd do my best to stop him, but I didn't know how. And I realized I wanted my kids to be safe. I wanted all kids to be safe. Actually, I wanted everybody to know how to take charge of their safety.
Confidence is believing in yourself.
We'll have your kids practice listening. So can you touch her shoulder? Good. Can you pick up her hand?
You teach people how to set boundaries, how to show awareness. You know that there's damage that's not going to happen because of what you did that day. And what could be better work than that?
The 3 strategies we teach are to be aware, take charge, and get help. And we have them practice using their own awareness to turn around and really look at what somebody's doing behind them. We also teach kids to say stop. Stop can be for unsafe or inappropriate touch. And stop can be for when you're starting to have a safety emergency. If all else fails, we teach kids to use the power of their bodies in physical self-defense.
Go. No. Good. Again. No. That's it.
We have either on a kick pad or with a head-to-toe padded instructor so that they can really hit and really kick and nobody gets hurt.
As parents, we talk to our kids a lot about safety, but you tend to wonder if they were actually put in a dangerous situation, if they would really know how to react.
Okay, look back, look back. What is Biggie doing?
My daughter's 3, and we love going to Kidpower because we learn all kinds of fun things that we practice at home, and it really improves the way she interacts with the kids at school. We did a Kidpower class before, and when we got home, all she wanted to do was talk about safety in the store. What do we do? What's our safety plan? It's just been amazing the way she's taken to it.
Stand up. Good. I didn't think I would get anything out of it, but I really did, more in terms of keeping calm and my own interactions with the children as well as with people around me. You may say things over and over again, but for them to actually do it and role play, I think really kind of gets the message in.
I learned how to walk away in dangerous situations.
I learned what techniques to use to defend myself.
Now I know how to be safe, and it just makes me feel more powerful.
Good job.
I think it's so great, the work you're doing, and I think Santa Cruz is just so happy to have you here, and you've been able to branch out internationally. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, maybe we could talk about some of the books that you're doing, or we could talk about, you know, how to create better relationships and the bigger picture.
A lot of what happens is that when people lose connection, when they're isolated, when they're alone, then problems, including violence, are more likely to happen. People are more people with mental illness are most likely to harm themselves or to be harmed by others. But when people feel that there is nothing to lose, there is no hope, and then sometimes some people turn to violence. Yeah. And so we want to, for many reasons, and plus the lack of healthy, positive relationships can harm kids and adults too, and make you miserable every single day. So we have different, we help with bullying. That's what adults need to know and do to keep kids
and
safe.
Bystander intervention is what I think is like such an important part of that.
Exactly.
Because you don't feed who this kid is, and because he needs the bystanders to be a bully.
That's right.
They have to laugh at his jokes or
that's right. Yeah. And we teach kids about the balance of power and how if somebody will just walk over next to another a person who's being bullied, and just even say, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
It can make such a difference. And they can go and get help from an adult. And then we teach adults how to be safe people to come to, how to intervene in a way that doesn't shame anybody, how we can, as adults, be powerful and respectful leaders in making our kids safe. We also teach, this is another book, relationship safety skills. And this is for helping stop dating and domestic violence, giving people the tools they need.
Fantastic.
And so, and a lot of our books are for kids are cartoon illustrated.
Well,
this one's bilingual. We have a lot of our materials are bilingual, but we have both. And finally, you know, this book is our big book. It's our this is our Kidpower book for caring adults. This is a comprehensive, probably the most comprehensive book of its kind. It talks about how to protect kids from abduction, from armed violence, and also from bullying and child abuse.
Wow. One thing I'd like to just kind of end the program with is to again emphasize to parents that the medical communities are suggesting that we only allow between 1 and 2 hours maximum of screen time for children, which includes the phone. You know, should include the telephone.
We encourage people to really, parents, to take charge of your kids' media and technology diet. In the same way, you take charge of their food diet. You don't want them to eat foods that are going to harm them. You don't want them to take in information that's going to harm them. You give them information when they need it. And you give them as much information as they need in a hopeful way, not a scary way, and then you practice skills in a way that's fun and empowering.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Irene. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. We'll have to have you back again. Maybe we could do some showing more of what goes on. Thank you so much for joining us on Moving Forward.
Inside this memory again, one earthbound minute, unbent. A moment broken, softly spoken, magic. So here we are. Night has thrown its heels at our door and stormed its way in.